anytime you want to connect again.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
Recording in progress.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order 2 o'clock on Wednesday, July 19th in the council chambers. So before we begin, I'm just going to read a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that the town of Wasaga Beach is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Tio-Na-Tati, Wendat, and is home of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people as part of the intricate nationhood that reaches Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships and ask for guidance in all that we do. So my name is Adam Herod, and we have Harold Van Gool, Andy, Daniel, Paul, and Dave Morrison here today as well. So we have 6 matters on the agenda for today. For each matter being considered today, the following process will occur. The applicant and/or agent will be asked to come to the front of the room if they are in person, or turn their camera on if they are appearing virtually. Next, the Secretary Treasurer will read the application being considered and will review the comments regarding the applications that were made by town departments, outside agencies, and the public, and will then read out the recommendation made by planning staff. After the application is read by the Secretary Treasurer, the applicant and/or agent will be given a brief opportunity to present their application and address any issues raised by staff in the staff report or public concerns already filed. Following the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, the committee will open for public participation and invite any questions, comments, or concerns respecting the application from anyone attending the meeting. This could be virtually or in person. The recording secretary will be monitoring, so if you are the recording secretary will be monitoring and providing each member of the public who wishes to speak the opportunity to do so. The committee will then ask the applicant, members of the public, or town staff to answer any questions that they may have with respect to the application being heard. Before closing the public portion, I will ask the recording secretary if there's any further questions from the attendees. I will then ask committee members if they have any questions. The committee will then render a decision by granting the application with conditions, reserving its decision, refusing or denying the application as submitted, or deferring the application to another public meeting. It's very important that the town receives the correct names and addresses of the individuals who have an interest in each application being heard. Therefore, if you plan to speak at the committee meeting, or if you wish to receive a copy of the decision, you must provide your name, address, or email address to the Secretary Treasurer. Under the Planning Act, any person or public body may appeal the decision. The appeal period for a minor variance is 20 days from the date of decision, and 20 days from the day of mailing of the notice of decision for consents. The deadline for each application will be provided on the notice of decision. The applicant, prior to the committee rendering a decision, may wish to have their application deferred until the next meeting. Such request will be at the sole discretion of the committee. The public meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Therefore, your name and address and other personal information are being recorded in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our recording secretary prepare an accurate minutes. So, the first item that we have up.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'm confused by one of the statements earlier with regard to the right of the general public to appeal. At the last meeting, when I was sitting in your place, I was informed that the general public no longer has that right. That right was removed. So I'm just asking, has that changed, or what is the situation so that we don't mislead the public? That's all.
And through you, Chair. Yeah, so as per the notice of decision, it outlines who can actually appeal the decision. So it's the Minister of Public Body or public body that has an interest in the matter. And there's specific public bodies that can appeal that are outlined in the notice of decision.
But it's not general public at large. They have to be specified items, and,
Correct.
and it does not include neighbors.
Through you, the Chair. Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
I will update my notes. Thanks.
I need to declare pecuniary interest in an application. I have pecuniary interest in application number 3, 49 Nancy Road, or Street, sorry. So I will abstain from the vote and take my place in the audience to address the application.
Thank you very much. Sorry, the next item on the agenda, sorry, does any other member have a disclosure of any pecuniary interest? So the next item is the adoption of the minutes from June 21st, 2023. So the recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment adopts the minutes of June 21st, 2023 meeting. So I'd have a mover. Harold, seconded by Daniel. And all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, application number 1, B25 Wood Avenue, lot 55, for consent, and it's 207, and I will pass the meeting over to the secretary.
Thank you, Chair. So file number B2523, land subject to the application is Plan 961, Lot 55 in the town of Saga Beach. The purpose and effect of the application is to create one new lot for a total of 2 lots. The portion of the property proposed to be severed, as shown on the sketch provided as Part 2, has a frontage of approximately 10.27 meters and a depth of approximately 54.4 meters and an area of approximately 554.58 square meters. The portion of the property proposed to be retained, as shown in the sketch, has a frontage of approximately 10.27 meters, a depth of approximately 54.44 meters, and an area of approximately 554.58 square meters. In regards to comments, Public Works does not oppose the application, and there's some comments that have been attached to the staff report as an appendix. The NVCA has no objection, and there's some additional comments as well in the appendix of the report. WDI, the applicant must contact WDI for the requirements of providing a new service to the lots in question. The recommendation. So Planning Department supports application B2523 subject to the following conditions being applied. Number 1, that a 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon an appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the Appraisal Institute of Canada. Number 2, that the applicant provides a registered reference plan, said reference plan to show all the parcels to be severed and all the parcels to be retained. Number 3, that an overall lot grading plan is to be provided showing both lots in accordance with the current Town of Wasaga Beach engineering standards and policies, specifically the infill and lot grading and drainage policies. Number 4, that a new 200 millimeter diameter sanitary cleanouts be provided at PL for both sanitary services in accordance to the town standard drawing 12A, that new water and new sewer services be provided to either Part 1 or Part 2 as required by the town contractor. The existing services may require relocation to be at least 1.5 meters from the side property line. Number 6, that the zoning bylaw amendment associated with application Z0723 be in full force and effect. that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the planning department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision. And I hand it back to you, Chair.
Thank you for this. And I believe we have Andrew here today that is ready to speak with us. He is representing the owner of the property in this matter. So Andrew, if you want to provide any further comments in regards to this application, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. My name is Andrew Pascuzza. I'm a registered professional planner. I'm here today.
Sorry, can you just hold on? I think your mic shut off.
Back on again? So I'll just start again. My name is Andrew Pascuzzo. I'm a registered professional planner here today on behalf of the owner and applicant of the file before you, Mr. Jose Severiano, who is also participating virtually, and we can see him on the screen. I'm obviously here in support of the consent. It's here to create two semis. It's important to note that there is a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment in front of the town as well, and that is to rezone the property from R1 to R2. Currently, the R1 zone does not permit semis, it only permits singles. That it will be a separate process. It will have to go to council for a zoning bylaw amendment. As the Secretary Treasurer has indicated, that will be one of the conditions of the consent. So I believe this is good planning. It's an infill lot on full services. We are also proposing accessory apartments in both of the semis. And just to reiterate, Mr. Severiano has also proceeded with a very similar development just to the east, if you've had a chance to be out on the property. Same thing was approved previously, a set of semis with accessory apartments in them. I understand that staff is recommending approval, that there are no objections that I am aware of. I've reviewed the proposed conditions and have no concerns. I obviously here to request that the committee accept the recommendation from staff and approve the consent conditionally. I think the zoning bylaw amendment is proceeding to council in August, around the third week of August. Happy to answer any other questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. And if you just want to stay there just in case, I didn't ask the Secretary Treasurer if there were any other comments from the public. No? Okay. So do any of the committee members have any questions for either the owner or the applicant? And I'm not seeing anyone from the audience coming forward to speak to this matter, so I will close the public portion of the meeting and read in the recommendation. So the recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from the owner of the property, Joe Severiano. So do I have a mover? And do I have a seconder? Andy? And all in favor? And sorry, that was Dave that moved it. So that is carried. So the next item is application number 2A1323. And I believe this matter has come forward before, and I'm not sure if Sarah is here.
I am here.
Okay, perfect. Can you put your camera on?
Sure.
I guess while we're waiting on Sarah to put on the camera, I will ask that the application be read into the record. Thanks.
Application 81323, 164 Santos Lane. So the purpose and effect of the application is that the applicant requests relief from section 4.3.5 to permit a reduced interior side yard setback of 1.09 meters along the northern property boundary for the proposed deck, whereas an interior side yard setback of 1.8 meters is required. The variance would recognize the newly constructed rear yard deck with an area of approximately 82.03 square meters, a height of approximately 1.67 meters, and an interior side yard setback of 1.09 meters along the northern property boundary. The comments, we're not received any comments from the public, but Public Works has no objection to permit the construction of an attached deck within the rear yard with a reduced interior yard setback, and the MVCA has no objections. The recommendation from the planning department is that they support the application A1323 subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the development will be substantially consistent with the site plan and drawings provided with the application contained within Appendix 1 of the report. And number two, that the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA clearance letter and provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the building department.
Thank you very much. And so I see that Sarah has joined. You said there was no other comments, correct? Perfect. So Sarah, I'm not sure if you heard or if you were still trying to connect, but the application was just written to the record. And I know you, I think, were here a couple months ago. And it sounds like maybe after reading the report, there may have been a difference in what you had requested previously versus what was built, hence you returning. So I will pass it over to you if you want to provide any further information to the committee members.
Sure. Thank you for giving me the time to speak. So just to kind of make it uncomplicated, when we did the drawing, the one corner was 4 inches closer than we anticipated. So when the building inspector or someone in the building department said I had to go back to the committee of adjustments, so I paid the extra $1,500 to come back here because it was literally less than 1% of the deck was 4 inches closer than we thought it was.
Would you like to, is that it? Is that anything else you want to add?
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's everything.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So I will see if any of the committee members have any questions of you or staff. So I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. No. Okay, I'm seeing no questions, so I'm going to close the public portion of this meeting, and I will call a vote that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Sarah Stanshell, Stans Hall, and do I have a mover? Andy, a seconder? Harold, all in favor? So that has carried. So you were granted the minor variance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the next item, application number 3. This is for 49 Nancy Street. And just for the record, Harold is leaving, is The applicant for this application
Just one moment.
So we're just gonna chat just to clarify something. So, just Harold, is there anyone else that is here that can present the application? It's just yourself? Okay. I'm assuming that's the reason, that we just need to clarify that this is okay.
Sorry about that, Chair. So we can proceed. Would you like me to read the application?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So application 142349 Nancy Street. The application requests relief from section 3.23 in the zoning bylaw to recognize the location of the existing single detached dwelling with an existing non-complying front yard depth setback of 2.01 meters, whereas a minimum front yard excuse me, depth setback of 6 meters is required in the residential type 1 zone. It's also to permit a new single-story rear yard addition to the existing non-complying dwelling with a proposed interior side yard setback of 1.5 meters along the northern property boundary, whereas a minimum interior yard width setback or setback of 1.8 meters is required in the residential type 1 zone. It also requests further relief from section 4 of the zoning bylaw, so section 4.3.5, to decrease the minimum required interior side yard setback from yes, that's correct. To decrease the minimum required interior side yard setback of 1.8 meters to 1.5 meters. And as per section 4.3.7, to permit the construction of an addition to the existing single detached dwelling that would result in an overall dwelling unit area of 81 square meters, whereas a minimum dwelling unit area of 93 square meters is required. Planning staff, and the recommendation from planning staff is that they support the application with the following condition: that the development be substantially consistent with the site plan and building design drawings provided with this minor variance application submission at the time of the building permit application review. And the Public Works staff has no objection to the application. And there has been no public comments.
Thank you very much. I will see if Harold has any further thing to add.
That one? That's good. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to appear in front of such an esteemed panel. I'd like to thank staff for a rather painless experience, other than payment of the fee, but beyond that, it was very easy to put this through, so thank you very much. The application is fairly straightforward. I'm acting on behalf of my daughter, Caitlin Van Gool. The three variances that we're looking for are rather minor, so I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, I don't see any questions from any of the committee members, and I don't see anyone from the public wishing to speak to this. So I'll close the public portion of the meeting and call the vote that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Harold Van Gool on behalf of his daughter. All in favor, or sorry, do I have a mover? Dave, seconded by Andy, and all in favor. And that is carried.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks. So the next item is application number 4, A1523. So this is for 264th Street North, and believe it's it's for a minor variance, and the agent is here representing the owner of the property. And I will get Christy to read in the application being considered.
Application E1523, 264th Street North. The applicant requests relief from section 4.3.3 to permit a reduced front yard depth or setback of 1.7 meters, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 6 meters is required. Section 4.3.6 to permit a reduced rear yard setback of 1.8 meters, where a minimum rear yard setback of 7.6 meters is required. Section 4.3.9 to permit a total lot coverage of 42.9%, whereas a maximum total lot coverage of 35% is required. The recommendation from planning staff is that they support application A1523 with the following conditions: that the development be substantially consistent with the site plan and building design drawings provided with this minor variance application submission at the time of the building permit application review. Number 2, that a lot grading plan is to be provided in accordance with the town's info lot grading and drainage policy. Number 3, that a new 200 millimeter diameter cleanout be provided as per the Town Wasaga Beach Standard Drawing 12A. Number 4, that a road occupation permit shall be taken out for any works within the town's right-of-way. Comments. The Town Public Works and Engineering Department has no objection to the application. The MVCA does not oppose the application, and there has not been any comments from the public.
Thank you very much. And I will turn the meeting over to the applicant's agent, Ron, here. So if you have anything further to add, now's your chance.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. The application is pretty straightforward. My client would like to demolish his existing 2-story home and build a 1-story home. He plans on coming up here to retire. Just the orientation of the lot, there's the long stretches along 64th Street, so if we were to go by the zoning, you would have a 5-foot wide house. That's why we're just kind of changing things around a little bit. As far as the recommendations go, my client doesn't have any problems with that. Seems pretty straightforward. That's what he wants to do.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And do I have any questions? First question, Andy, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions. The request is to reduce the front yard setback. as well as the rear yard setback. And the reason for that is because they want to build a bigger house than what's allowed?
No, sir, it's the way the lot is situated. You have 64th Street, which is the longest part of the lot, and it's 50 feet wide from 64th Street. So basically 64th is your front. So if you want 20 feet and then 25 feet from the back rear line, you only got 5 feet in the middle.
So the frontage of the lot is right on 64th Street,
Yes, sir.
and
it
that's
is.
why you're asking for these reductions?
Yes.
Okay, and the reason you're asking for the reason the applicant is asking for the increase in, we're going from 35% to 42.9% increase in the lot, in the coverage, right?
Well, most of the coverage, sir, is, it would come to, don't quote me on this, I think it would come to about 36%, and then the rest of it is for covered porches, like a deck and like a covered entry and a covered deck in the front facing the water. That pretty much taken up the rest of the lot coverage.
Okay, so the coverage, so the situation is because of the location of the street and the house, it's in order to, front yard, like you say, you're gonna reduce it down to nothing. If you take the 2018, 45 feet off that front, you're gonna have nothing left there.
Yeah, there wouldn't be anything.
Okay. Okay, those are my only questions.
Go ahead, Dave.
Just to, through you to the planner who wrote the report, just to clarify, and I'm not suggesting you're telling me false, but you were a little hazy on the numbers. I just want to make sure. So with regard to the overall lot coverage, a lot of that is included in a covered deck and that type of thing. We're not building a monster home on a tiny lot.
Through the chair, I think a monster home would naturally be a subjective term. What is...
I was just trying to make clear what I'm talking
No,
about.
no,
I
understood.
apologize.
Understood. And what is included and what the applicant has spoken to in this case is the coverage includes the primary single detached dwelling, so the main house, and within the overall coverage calculation, the covered porch and attached garage are also a part of that calculation as well. So in total, you have the single detached dwelling, the covered porch, and the attached garage.
But that's standard anywhere, and the lot coverage applies to all of these lots or whatever? The covered deck and the garage and all that, that would be standard on any lot regardless of what size it is?
Through the chair, correct in that.
Thank you.
What you've outlined in terms of what contributes to the lot coverage would be standard in this instance.
Thank you.
If I may just interject, I got the right numbers here. Okay, so the main dwelling, the proposed dwelling itself, okay, we're looking at 1,724 square feet. We want to add a garage to it also, which is 624. And the covered decks and all that is 694, which kind of gives it the whole character of the house.
Any questions from this side? No? Any further questions? Yep, go ahead.
Just my comment, I understand the situation is that because of the location of the lot and the street and the front and the rear yard, and we don't want to make the lot impossible, but I just, my concern is coverage. And the only reason I say that is that when they come up with these bylaws and they say 35% coverage, in most normal situations, they follow the coverage. I mean, we're jumping this thing to 43% approximately, right? And it's because of the garage and the porch and all the rest of it. And probably the porch and the garage are part of the design, but I have some current concerns about the coverage on the lot, in that it's way beyond the planning of what it, in my opinion, it's way beyond the original bylaw, what it was. So what, we're changing the streetscape, but I know practicality, my common sense hat goes on and says, it's the only thing you can do in this circumstance in that lot.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd like to concur with what Andy has said. I think the size of the lot is significant. It's not unusual in size. It's buildable. I understand the concern with regards to it being a long lot on a long frontage. But I think that the lot coverage isn't minor anymore. I think it's getting to be significant at 42%, even with covered structures on there. So I have an issue with the percent of lot coverage for the application.
And I don't know who wants to answer this, but math is not my strong suit. So, if for example, the attached garage was to be eliminated from that lot coverage, what would you be left with? And I don't know who wants to answer that. What would be the percentage? I guess is what I'm looking for.
I'd just like to remind committee members to use the microphones while speaking.
Sorry about that.
Through the chair, if I may, I can provide some additional context that was outlined in the staff report, if that's to the benefit of committee with rendering this decision. I would just say the intent of the maximum lot coverage provision is to ensure that drainage is maintained on the subject property. Pardon me, I'm just going to turn down the volume a little bit on this. And that that there isn't drainage onto neighboring properties or anything of that nature. The other part of the intent of this provision is to ensure that the parcel isn't dominated by structures. I would say that the town's Public Works and Engineering Department has outlined that they do not oppose this application. Also, as a condition of approval, this same department, the town's Public Works and Engineering Department, has requested that a lot grading plan be provided in accordance with the town's infill lot grading and drainage policy. And this is a typical standard process for a building permit for a new residential build or something of this scale. I would also just add that on the note of ensuring that the property isn't dominated by structures, there's a significant portion of the property that will be accessible for amenity space. And in this case, that's actually the interior side yard, which faces the beach.
Thank you for clarifying that and the intention of the lot coverage. I think Andy has Daniel has a question.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want clarification on coverage. Am I correct in understanding that coverage includes when you're doing your square footage? In other words, if it's 200 square feet on it, that's included in the overall coverage of the house. Is that correct?
Through the chair, in this instance, because it's a full covered porch, that would contribute towards the overall lot coverage provision.
And that's because it's covered. Is that correct? If it wasn't covered, it wouldn't be included. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it's essentially outlined in the lot coverage definition of the town zoning bylaw, but in answer to your question, because it is covered in this instance, that's why it's contributing to the lot coverage.
I think the only other thing I wanted to reiterate is that I'm in agreement that increasing the coverage. I support the other members here in their comments. I'm not going to repeat it, but I think that we're stepping outside the boundary a little here in general and just going to maybe set a precedent for the future. Hopefully not. Thank you.
And I have another question or comment.
Not a question. Questions have all been answered. So, I share my colleagues' concerns. Lot coverage is an issue. Threshold for minor variances is something that we need to discuss as a group. And I don't know how to set that up, but it would be a very good thing for us to do before we get too far into our term. Because I do believe it is our responsibility to set those thresholds. If we're not doing that and establishing that, I'm not quite sure why we're here, other than just rubber stamping. So I do believe that the lot coverage component is of significance, and therefore can't support it in its current in its current formation. I do have one question, and I'm not sure. From a technical perspective, and perhaps I can pass this through the chair to Christy. If it is defeated, then the process starts over again with whatever the new plan is, correct?
If this is not approved today, then it would depend on, if the applicant would either resubmit or they could appeal the decision. So committee would have to give a very clear reasoning for
I
not
understand.
approving, excuse me, I'm still speaking. The committee would have to be very clear about the reasoning as to why they would not be granting the approval today. And it would be the applicant, agent, the owner could appeal the decision.
And if he chose not to do that, he could resubmit, but he would be starting the process over again. Am I correct?
Through you, the chair, he could resubmit, but the other option would be to appeal the decision.
I understand that. But there's a third option that we might choose, another option that we might choose. And if we were to pass a motion to defer, to give him an opportunity to re-examine the footprint of this and deal with the lot coverage on his own, that he doesn't have to pay an additional fee. It just simply goes away and comes back when there's new paperwork submitted. Am I correct?
If I'm understanding correctly, the committee might want to propose a condition that he would have to make it meet the zoning bylaw, then therefore, if the applicant has agent or the owner, they could decide to appeal the decision. It's my understanding that they could appeal that decision as well. And that would be something that would be at their discretion to do.
Thank you.
Just a question on the clarification of the frontages, and maybe on a street in a subdivision, the front is on the front, but when it's wide, is water on it, and this may sound crazy, but is the back not the front then, when it's facing the water?
Through the chair, the way the zoning bylaw is written, the front yard would either be where the primary access is to the property, or in the case of a corner lot, where there's an exterior side yard, it would be the shorter of the two lot lines on a corner lot. But in most cases, it's where the primary access is to the property, so where the driveway configuration is. But to answer your question, pardon me, frontage would not be counted in terms of the direction facing towards the water in this instance.
So just for clarification, so on River Road East, we're going along, and on the left-hand side is a river, so the frontage wouldn't be on the street, the frontage would be on the river?
Through the chair, the frontage would still remain towards the street in that instance, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I was just making a few notes here. So there's a few things that I'm just going to put out there. So as the as a committee, minor variance applications, we provide permission from relief from the town's zoning bylaw. So in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act, the committee may authorize a minor variance if the committee is satisfied that the variance is minor in nature, the general intent and purpose of the town's official plan is maintained, the general intent and purpose of the town's zoning bylaw is maintained, and the proposal is desirable for the development of the land. Staff have gone ahead and provided a report, and in the report, they have suggested, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the application is minor in nature, and they've provided reasons for that in the report. They've also indicated that the intent of the zoning bylaw, and they spoke of it, the total lot coverage, they spoke of the intent of that. So it is, again, based on staff's comments in the report, I feel that this application should proceed because unless a committee member has a different opinion, which again will have to be made very clear as to why this application is being denied, I think we are required to proceed with this application. Those are my comments. So before I close the public portion of the meeting, is there any further comments from committee members?
The one point of the application that I don't think is minor is the lot coverage. I don't think 42% is a minor number. I think it's subjective with respect to what staff might think is minor and what we might. In my opinion, it's not, so I'll be voting against the motion.
So what I will say, I'll just read the planning staff's comments in regards to like why they considered it minor in nature, is because the impact to the adjacent lands and surrounding neighborhoods is expected to be minimal and would result in minimal impact relative to a form of development that would otherwise comply with the existing provisions of the town zoning bylaw. So I don't have a reason to believe that this is not minor in nature, and I believe the intent of the town zoning bylaw is trying to be maintained. So I am willing to accept this application, but I will call the vote. So I will put the motion on the floor so that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Ron Fleer with the conditions as set out in the application. So all in favor? Or sorry, I guess, do I have a mover? I can move, correct?
If I may interject, okay, just judging from the comments that were made here today, I am respectfully going to defer this application and go back to the drawing board to knock down our lot coverage.
Okay, so I guess, does any of the committee members object to the request to defer?
No, and if we need a motion to do so, I'll be happy to move to defer.
Yeah.
Is that what we need?
Sorry, a motion should be put on the floor to defer, or we can also, since the applicant or the agent has requested that it be deferred, and so then, yes, you would need to put a motion on the floor to.
I guess my question for you, is this what the owner wants, or do you need time to speak with the owner of the property as agent? Do you want to take 5 minutes to maybe give them a call to make sure that they're good with the
Yeah, 5 minutes would be great, if I can get a hold of them.
Yeah, if you can try to get a hold of them, I'd prefer, because you're not the owner of the property, you are acting as their agent, but I would just, for the purpose of the meeting, I'd want their go ahead, or giving you permission.
Through you, the chair, I request that maybe we just take a 5-minute break.
Sure.
5-minute
That's
intermission
fine.
so that Ron can, the agent can call his and she's ready now, so we can call.
Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you very much for allowing us that recess for 5 minutes. So the agent has come back, and I believe he has spoken to the owner. Is that correct?
Yes, I spoke with the owners, and at this time, we requesting to defer this application to a later date to get the lot coverage down.
Okay, perfect. I guess if there's been a motion on the table, we have, is that what you're going to tell me?
Wasn't sure where you were, but yes, my motion to defer.
Okay. Sorry, and I know this has come up before, and I'm going to look to the recording, the Secretary Committee, Secretary Treasurer to confirm. Do we need to vote on the motion that was put on the floor by myself?
Yep, so I believe that the motion was put forward by yourself to approve the application, and we only had a mover.
Correct.
And then the agent then requested that we defer the application. And now Dave's put a motion on the floor Member Dave Morrison's put a motion on the floor to defer the application. Therefore, we can vote on
The
the
deferral.
deferral.
Thank you for confirming that. So I will call the vote that the Committee of Adjustment hereby defer application A1523 by Ron Fleer on behalf of the owners of the property. This is for number 2, 64th Street North for a minor variance for the front yard, rear yard, and lot coverage. So do I have a mover? Andy, and do I have a seconder? Oh, sorry. We haven't moved, so seconded by Andy. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that, and I guess we will see you back here in the future.
Thank you very much for your time and your concerns, and see you in 2 months.
Thank you. All right, so the next application is number 5, A1623 for Leslie Ann Drive, and it's for a minor variance, and just for the record, it is 3 o'clock. So I guess I will, are they here online or?
So
So, thank you, you're here. Do you want to step forward? Perfect, and just, if you want to grab a seat while the application is being read by our Secretary Treasurer.
application A1623, Plan 1408, Part 41, Registered Plan 51R 32386, Parts 2 and 3. The application requests relief from Section 3.1. So Section 3.1.2 to permit a 98 square meter detached accessory building, whereas detached accessory buildings shall not use more than 65 square meters in lot area in total. Section 3.1.2 to permit a detached accessory building with a maximum horizontal dimension of 11.58 meters, whereas detached accessory buildings cannot exceed a horizontal dimension of 9 meters. Section 3.1.4 to permit a detached accessory building with a maximum height of 7.64 meters, whereas a maximum height of a detached accessory building shall be 5 meters. Section 3.1.4 to permit a detached accessory building with a half story that has a height of 2.44 meters between finished floor and finished ceiling, whereas a detached accessory building shall not exceed 1 story, but may have a lot of loft with a maximum height of 2.3 meters between the finished floor and finished ceiling. Planning, the recommendation is that Planning Department supports application A1623, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the development will be substantially consistent with the site plan provided with the application contained within Appendix 2 of this report. Number two, that the maximum height of the half-story not exceed 2.44 meters between finished floor and finished ceiling. Number three, that a detached accessory structure maintain a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters on the eastern property boundary. Public Works does not oppose the applicant's requests, and there has been no further comments.
Thank you very much. And I don't see anyone here in person that's wishing to speak to this. And I just, if you want to confirm, there's no one online? No? Okay. Thank you. So go ahead with the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So once again, my name is Andrew Pascuzzo. I'm a registered professional planner. I'm here today on behalf of the owners and applicants. They are also here today. Shauna Lee and Dan McFarland are in the audience. I'm here to support the minor variance application to permit a detached accessory structure with dimensions beyond what is permitted in the zoning bylaw. The purpose of this accessory structure is for storage only. My client, specifically Dan, has a lot of stuff. So he needs a lot of storage space. And he doesn't want to have to pay to use a storage unit off-site. It is my professional planning opinion that the proposed increases for the detached building are minor, and they conform with your official plan. And because of this, the proposed accessory building will not have any negative impacts on the surrounding properties. This is very important. It's worth noting that the subject lands back onto open space lands, which are known as the provincial park. It is also worth noting that my clients also own the vacant land to the east. And it is my understanding that the lot to the west is owned by the town of Wasaga Beach. And that is how I came to the conclusion that there would be no negative impacts to the minor variance request. It's also worth noting that the overall lot coverage, when my client decides to build his principal dwelling as well as this accessory structure, will be well less than the 35% coverage in the R1 zone. It will be below 25%. I've reviewed the staff report, and I understand that staff is recommending approval. I'm not aware of any objections, and now I've confirmed that no one is here from the public to object either. Based on this, I request that the committee accept the recommendation of the staff report and approve the minor variance. I'm also happy to answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, again for speaking. Is there anyone from the committee that wants to speak?
Just a couple of questions. You're going for the accessory building first before you have a plan for a house?
We have plans for a house. We have not submitted an application for a building permit until just recently, within the last few days. Those plans have been submitted for the principal dwelling as well as we're holding off for the accessory dwelling until we got the approvals before the committee.
So the overall coverage won't exceed the 35%?
It will be well below the 25%, as I indicated previously in my presentation.
Okay. Will there be any potable water in that building?
Through the chair, there will be no water accessibility through
Any hydro?
My understanding is there will be lights, yes, so hydro will be connected, yes.
So it'll be a storage building with hydro for that. The elevation now, I drove by the site, you've got part 1, part 2, part 3, but is the grading of the lot such that it goes back to the parkland behind for the overall drainage, or does the drainage come out the front of the lot?
I haven't reviewed the lot drainage plan, but I don't think we would be able to throw untreated water towards the park. My understanding is it must come towards the road through ditches on the east and west sides of the property. Does that make
So-
sense?
My guess is that right now, that excavation or the clearing of the trees is about 5 feet lower than the road elevation now. So all that's going to be coming up higher?
There will be some filling, yes.
Okay. My concern, two things. One is that if the water does backflow towards the park or this building is higher, that's my number one. The second part is the height going from the 29 feet to the 38 feet for the height. If that elevation at the back is coming up to the road level, and we're going to be 40 feet up, it's just a concern of we're exceeding what we're doing. So those are my only two comments. One is it's 29 feet to 38 feet, and if you're at the road level, this building is going to be 40 feet higher than the elevation at the road. That's my only concern.
So in response, if I may, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate, more than 75% of the property will be open space. So in terms of your drainage concerns, I'm not as concerned with them. I'm not a professional engineer, but way more than half the property will be pervious surface. With regard to height, it's my respectful submission that the garage may not even be visible from the street because the main structure will be located in front of it.
Well, then the main structure would have to be more than 38 feet to get. Anyways, thank you very much for your.
Any further questions? No questions? And I also don't have any questions myself, so thank you very much for that. So I will close unless somebody else has a...
I do have a quick question. It's just a curiosity. Why is it necessary to have the height go beyond the easily permissible numbers?
Well, currently, a second story is not permitted, right, for accessory buildings. I think that needs to be changed personally. I think your bylaw is 20 years old and it needs to be cleaned up.
But that's not for either you or me to determine.
That's why I'm going through a minor variance. That's my respectful submission, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the honesty.
Thank you, and seeing no further comments, then I will close the public portion of the meeting. And I will call the vote or put a motion on the table that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Shauna and Dan McFarland. So do I have a mover? Moved by Harold. Do I have a seconder? Daniel, and all in favor? That is carried. Application number 6, B2623, and this is for 8 Second Lane. It's for consent. Thank you. So I will, is the owner or agent here online?
Yes, I'm an owner online, Tatiana Krudevich.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to get you to put on your camera. But I'm going to pass the meeting over to the Secretary Treasurer to read in the application itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, application B2623, 8 Second Lane in the town of Wasaga Beach. The purpose and effect of the application is that it proposes to create one residential building lot for a total of two lots. The portion of the property proposed to be retained, as shown on the sketch provided in the staff report, has a frontage of approximately 12.36 meters, a depth of approximately 37.97 meters, and an area of approximately 469.31 square meters. The portion of the property to be severed as shown on the sketch as Part 1 has a frontage of approximately 12.35 meters, a depth of approximately 37.97 meters, and an area of approximately 468.93 square meters. Public Works does not oppose the applicant's request, and the comments, their additional comments can be found as an appendix to the staff report. And Wasaga Distribution, or WDI, has reviewed the proposal and have no objections. And the recommendation from planning staff is to approve the application. They support the application with the following conditions. Number one, that a 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon an appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the Appraisal Institute of Canada. That the applicant provides a deposit reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcels to be severed. That the applicant apply for and obtain any necessary permits for the demolition removal of the existing shed located on the proposed severed lands. That it be demolished, removed, and that the applicant provide confirmation of the demolition or removal to the Town of Wasaga Beach Planning Department prior to the issuance of the certificate of official. Number four, that any accessory building structures or buildings or structures on the retained lands, Part 2, be brought into conformity with the required lot coverage provision of the zoning bylaw. Should the accessory buildings or structures require demolition, the applicant shall apply for and obtain any necessary permits for the demolition and shall provide confirmation of the demolition and or removal to the planning department prior to the issuance of the certificate of official. Number five, that an overall lot grading plan is to be provided showing both lots in accordance with the current Town of Wasaga Beach engineering standards and policies, specifically the infill lot grading and drainage policy. Number six, that the existing service locations to be shown on the above plan for the retained lot and the proposed location for the new services on the severed lot. Number seven, that a new 200 millimeter diameter sanitary cleanouts are to be provided for both sanitary services in accordance with the town standard drawing A. That new water and sewer services are to be provided to the severed lot 1 by a town approved contractor. And number 9, that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the planning department for issuance of certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask for one thing? Like, can you hear me? If about the shed, which will be located on the new lot.
Sorry, can you just repeat that? It was hard to hear. I think so.
Okay, I think.
Are you back? You just have to unmute yourself. Right now you're muted.
Okay, sorry. It was disconnected. Could you hear me? If it's possible to keep this shed for 2 years until we build the house, because we are going to build house on that lot.
Okay, so you're asking that that you essentially want to keep the shed for 2 years while they build the.
Yes, please.
Okay, before we get into that, I'm going to allow you to kind of present your application. And as you may have heard, the Secretary Treasurer just read in kind of the application and kind of any of the comments from the town's staff and the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. So do you have anything further that you would like to add to your application for consent that for the committee?
We agree with everything. Yeah, the only thing we ask for the shed to keep, and everything else, yes, we agree with it.
Okay, so the committee members may have additional questions for you. So I'm just looking, seeing none. So because this wasn't kind of part of the conditions, I'm going to just ask staff what the process would be, if this would be permissible, if we can add it as a condition. Thanks.
So through you, the chair, in terms of the I guess reasoning for including that condition from planning staff, in terms of the severed lot, it's our understanding that the owners would like to keep the existing shed that's located at the rear of the lot. However, a shed, which would be an accessory structure, would only be permitted on a lot that has a primary use. In this case, it would be a dwelling. So by essentially requesting to split the lot into two and creating a new lot, that would be a lot with just an accessory structure, which would not be in compliance with the zoning bylaw. However, the committee may choose to add additional conditions if that's what you or the committee members would like to do.
Thank you very much for confirming that. So I'm not sure if you heard that, but planning staff had just kind of indicated that if this does go through, the property that was not the retained, but the severed property would have a accessory structure on it, and in order to have an accessory structure, you have to also have a dwelling on it, so you just can't have a accessory structure, so it would be in contravention of the town's zoning bylaw. So that's what the planning staff had kind of indicated, in case you didn't hear that. So I don't see any other questions of the committee members. So I'm going to close the public portion of this this meeting, and I will put the motion on the table as kind of indicated by town staff, with the conditions, not the conditions to keep the shed. So that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Michael Krulevich with the conditions as set out in the application. So do I have a mover? I do have a mover, Andy, and seconded by Daniel, and all in favor. So that is carried. So you won't be able to keep that shed on the property. And
Even, sorry to interrupt. Even if you're going to build like house, like in the near future, just start to build a house.
So the committee approved the application with the conditions set out. My suggestion would be for you to speak to planning staff further if you're looking to keep that shed on that property, but the committee had no interest in adding that as part of the conditions.
Okay.
Okay, but
Yes.
your application for consent has been approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
That concludes all of the applications today. So the next scheduled meeting for the Committee of Adjustment will be on August 16th here at the Council Chambers at 2 o'clock. That ends the meeting, so I will adjourn this meeting at 3:22. Thank you.